3 weeks ago, thanks to the new Republican Speaker's office, we gained access to thousands of hours of surveillance video that help answer that question. The January 6th committee had access to this very same tape and watched much of it. But as we're about to show you, committee members lied about what they saw.
Several weeks ago, there was this big controversy over Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy handing over hours and hours and hours of January 6th footage to Tucker Carlson. Now, we didn't cover it, I didn't panic about it because quite honestly, I didn't care. But now we see the culmination of that effort. Tucker Carlson attempting to instill this notion of questioning whether the January 6th riots really happened, if the narratives that we heard from the press are real. And let's just cut to the chase. He tried to lie, but he did so while showing footage that debunked his lies as he was telling it. Let me give you an example. Let's go to the first video.
The protesters were angry. They believed that the election they had just voted in had been unfairly conducted. They were right. In retrospect, it is clear the 2020 election was a grave betrayal of American democracy. Given the facts that have since emerged about that election, no honest person can deny it.
No honest person can deny it, Cenk. So he starts off by perpetuating Donald Trump's big lie that the election was stolen, that there was some unfair behavior taking place, that there was fraud taking place. He doesn't get specific. He doesn't actually provide a shred of evidence, of course, just like Donald Trump and his campaign when they were before 60 different judges, and again, failed to provide a shred of evidence of widespread voter fraud. But it is interesting that Tucker is spouting this when we all know that privately, he knew that the big lie was just that, a big lie. I'm gonna give a few examples, Cenk, and then I'll go to you. For instance, on November 8th, 2020, Carlson privately texted his producer that the allegations about Dominion were absurd according to the Dominion filing. Also that day, Carlson's producer texted him about his own doubts. I don't think there's evidence of voter fraud that swung the election, his producer Alex Pfeiffer texted to Carlson per the lawsuit. The software stuff is absurd, Carlson allegedly responded. Now on November 13th, Carlson wrote privately that Trump needed to concede and agreed that there wasn't enough fraud to change the outcome of the election, according to the filing. On November 21st, Carlson privately texted that claims about Dominion were shockingly reckless, according to the filing. On November 22nd, Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham privately discussed Sidney Powell, according to the filing, with Tucker calling her, quote, a nut, end quote. I mean, there's more. You want more? I'll give you more.
So here's a conclusion we reach from this. Tucker Carlson has himself concluded that truth is dead, that there is no such thing as the truth, and that his audience watches nothing else, knows nothing else, so he can brazenly lie to them, full well knowing that everyone has the quotes from the lawsuit where we're positive that Tucker Carlson thinks the election was not stolen. He clearly states that over and over again. And he goes on air and insinuates that the election was stolen, thereby proving himself beyond any shadow of a doubt to be a monstrous liar. Now, he's not a dumb guy. You make that active decision when you think truth is dead. No one agrees to truth anymore. So I'm just gonna spin this in a way that is most advantageous to me, my politics, my finances, etc. And I think the audience does not have enough information where they can ever get to the truth. It is the Fox News audience. They will never know what's true. That's his conclusion.
It is fascinating that he comes out with this embarrassing monologue that has absolutely no evidence to back it up. Right after Steve Bannon attacked Fox News. Right after Steve Bannon argued at CPAC that Fox News wasn't sufficiently loyal to Daddy Trump. But let me continue, I do want to give you more. I love giving you guys more, so here's more. Tucker Carlson also said of Sidney Powell, Donald Trump's campaign lawyer, who was furthering nonsense about widespread voter fraud, quote, "It totally wrecked my weekend, wow. I had to try to make the White House disavow her, which they obviously should have done long ago," Carlson told Laura Ingraham per the filing. No serious lawyer could believe what they were saying, she allegedly replied. But they said nothing in public, replied Carlson. Pretty disgusting. Okay, and then my favorite part, my favorite statement from Tucker Carlson. Carlson then called then President Donald Trump a demonic force and a destroyer in a text to his producer after thousands of Trump supporters stormed the US Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Now keep that in mind as you watch the next video.
Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol, they obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system.
Yeah, like the one who defecated on someone's desk.
Orderly sightseer.
Super meek. Now, Cenk, here are the facts, okay? Because he thinks the majority of them were totally fine. There was no issue whatsoever, except over 2 years later, more than 1,000 people have been charged. Now, just because you're charged doesn't mean that you're guilty. It just means that you're facing charges, right? You'll have your day in court. So far, what percentage of them have been convicted? Well, at least 476 people out of that 1,000 have pleaded guilty in connection to the insurrection. And among those who pleaded guilty, well, let's get some details. Who were they? Brian Ulrich entered his guilty plea at a virtual hearing Friday in US District Court. This is an older article in NPR. In US District Court in Washington, D.C., the 44-year-old from Guyton, Georgia, is the second oath keeper to plead guilty to sedition charges in the highest profile case to emerge from the federal investigation into the Capitol riot. I mean, it was only 2 oath keepers, right, that pleaded guilty to sedition, except no, they weren't the only 2. Oh, wow, look at this headline from Associated Press, January 23rd, 2023. 4 oath keepers convicted of January 6th seditious conspiracy. So sedition comes up quite a bit in not only the charges, but also the guilty pleas.
Yeah, so a couple of different conclusions I reach from this. So number one is, look, there's a lot of different ways to look at everything, right? And so that's why his audience, which is predisposed to believing what Tucker Carlson is saying, looking at those tiny snippets out of 40,000 hours of video where he shows you the one part where they're bashing in the door, the windows, etc. And says like a couple of hooligans. But then he shows them walking around in the times they weren't chanting, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. And he shows them walking around and people go, oh, look, they're just walking. It doesn't seem like a mad crowd. And look, there's a cop there. By the way, I also wanna know why the cops weren't arresting everyone and didn't shoot into the crowd, which they most definitely would have if those protesters were Black Lives Matters or Muslim or whatever. You all know that, even if you're a right winger, you know that. Anyways, so he shows them what they want to see. And can you find that needle in that haystack? Yes, you can. You can find almost any needle in any haystack. By the way, that's an old mainstream media trick, to find one little thing that someone has done wrong and then define them by it. In this case, he's finding one little thing that they did. Well, I don't even know that it's okay. It's still breaking and entering, even if you're, at some point walked while you were inside the building that you broke and entered into while you were chanting about murdering someone.
I mean, there's one other portion from his segment yesterday that I thought was telling, because listen to what he says as you're watching footage of US lawmakers running for their lives. Let's go, let's watch it.
The surveillance footage we reviewed shows that famous clip was a sham,
edited deceptively by the January 6th committee. The clip was propaganda, not evidence. The actual videotape shows that Hawley was one of many lawmakers being ushered out of the building by Capitol Hill police officers. And in fact, Hawley was at the back of the pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many from the January 6th committee.
How exactly is it a lie as you're literally showing the audience that lawmakers they're not being ushered. They are running for their lives. You can see it with your own two eyes. It is insane that he literally shows the footage as he says that. And look, there's like a chorus of right-wing media types who are like, oh yeah, did you see Tucker Carlson's segment? Nailed it, nailed it.
No, guy. No, I'm not exaggerating at all, and I'm not kidding when I say this should be studied by science. Because he says the opposite of the tape, and I guarantee you 99.9% of the people that watch that tape believe him 100%.
It's insane.
And in fact, Anna's 100% right. You go on social media right now, every right-winger is saying, vindicated. The Democrats are so evil, the way they manipulated all those tapes. Oh my God, can you believe it? But the tape showed them running, and Tucker's main defense is that Hawley was in the back of the pack of the people who were running for their lives.
Tucker, I mean,
how does that show that the video is altered? It literally says the video was not altered. And they literally were afraid for their lives, including Hawley. It proves the exact opposite of what he was saying on tape. But I guarantee you, nearly 100% of the 3 million or so people that watched Tucker Carlson last night, they all believed what he said and not what their lying eyes were telling them. It's amazing, amazing. I swear to God, it should be studied by science. And by the way, whenever you want to do lies like this, you sprinkle in a couple of things that are true that everybody can say, well, I mean, that's definitely, that guy is walking, Hawley is in the back. Well, I guess those things are true, right? And one of the things that are true is that a lot of the people in that building, if not most of them, if not almost all of them, truly believed that Trump had won the election and that Biden had stolen it. And so that's why in a lot of ways, directing our anger and our wrath and our laws against these guys, while justified for the crimes that they committed, is misdirected, because it should be at the people who actually led the proceedings, the people who organized the actual coup. But the problem with legislators, including Democrats, and most especially Democrats, is that they love the elites. And so they're never gonna punish Bannon or Navarro or Trump, never, ever, ever. They're just gonna use it for political talking points. Instead, they're gonna take it out on those schmucks who I think genuinely did believe that Trump had won. But why did they believe Trump had won? Because guys like Tucker Carlson, behind the scenes, said Trump is a demonic force and he will destroy everything in his path. And I don't want it to be us. That's the rest of that quote. I don't want it to be us. That was a super active, conscious decision to lie to his audience because he was afraid of both his audience and Trump. So he makes that active decision. We're gonna lie to all these people and tell them that Trump won the election. And then once they say that over and over again, January 6th was inevitable. Of course, you were gonna get some percentage of right-wingers who were gonna say, oh, should we commit violence to take back the government that is ours? We've been told our entire lives is ours and ours only. Of course they were gonna do that once Tucker and the rest of Fox News made the fateful decision that they would support Donald Trump's lies rather than show people what the actual reality is, actually do news. And so to this day, he's still not doing news, he's doing the exact opposite.
I mean, he is terrified of the audience. And that is what has been made very clear through the text messages, the depositions, all the information that we have learned so far through the Dominion defamation lawsuit against Fox News. It is a publicly traded company. They are concerned about the value of their shares, and they're terrified that their audience is going to abandon them for an outlet that's even further to the right. And so they are willing to not only engage in revisionist history, but honestly, anyone who has two brain cells to rub together would watch that segment and be deeply insulted by Tucker Carlson insulting their intelligence. I get confirmation bias. I get that we all want to believe things that we have preconceived notions about. But reality matters, living in reality matters. And for the Republicans out there who, for some reason, feel this I don't know, it's almost like this knee-jerk reaction in providing cover for the Capitol rioters. Just don't, right? How does it help you? How does it help the Republican Party? How does it help conservatives and their ideology in any way to provide cover for folks who very clearly broke into the Capitol, chanted all sorts of violent things, and tried to reverse the results of our democratic process?
Other than being terrified about his audience, he also has no respect for them.
No, he doesn't. He talks to them as if they're morons.
Yeah, it's number one, he thinks he doesn't respect them enough to tell them the truth and then adjust their expectations, opinions, etc., and his own to fit the facts rather than their preconceived opinions, right? But secondarily, even more devastatingly, he thinks these guys are a bunch of morons. They're never gonna figure out the truth. They're never gonna figure out that I'm brazenly lying to them, even though I'm on the record in a court case with definitive quotes where I know for a fact that it was not stolen and that they're a bunch of schmucks. But I'm gonna lie to them over and over and over again. Guys, every once in a while, people will criticize me, say, Cenk, you're too tough on right-wing voters.
You are, I think you are.
Okay, I'm not anywhere near as tough on right-wing voters as Tucker Carlson is.
Oh, that's a good point.
Tucker Carlson thinks they are the dregs of society, just the very bottom of the barrel, just the dumbest people in the whole wide world who couldn't see the truth, even if he puts it in video form right in front of them.
I wouldn't be surprised if he mocked them after that segment.
I guarantee you he had a belly laugh. And then this morning when he sees all of those moron right-wing pundits online going, oh yeah, they were just tourists and sightseers, man. Tucker proved it. He must have had another round of laughs. Look at all these, not only my viewers, but the so-called thought leaders on the right. All decrepitly evil or just so painfully stupid that they can't see straight. That's not my opinion. That's definitively Tucker Carlson's opinion. We know every intelligent person knows what he actually thinks. It's on the goddamn record. Yep. He thinks there's not a single person in his audience that's intelligent enough to actually look up the reality. Amazing. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.